Welcome to the Fall 2022 Session 2 AEDY English Learner presentation. During this session, I will present how to create an English Learner individual language learning plan with the new 2022 access scores of the student Maria Patel. Joining us is the AEDY patent team. The mission of the Pennsylvania Training and Technical Assistance Network, PATN, is to support the efforts and initiatives of the Bureau of Special Education and to build the capacity of local educational agencies to serve students who receive special education services. Our goal for each child is to ensure individualized education program IEP teams begin with the general education setting with the use of supplementary aids and services before considering a more restrictive environment. On this slide, the following questions will provide a framework for understanding and guiding this presentation. Number 1, why is it important to create individual English learner individual language learning plans? Number 2, what tools, resources are available to create an English learner individual language learning plan? And number 3, what are the steps to create an English learner individual language learning plan? We will now call these learning plans. In this session, the focus will be on demonstrating how Pennsylvania and Wida standards frameworks can work together for lesson planning and delivery. This slide will address the first question. Why is it important to create individual English learner individual language learning plans? The individual learning plan is a locally created template to assist in including details, strategies, instructional and assessment accommodations, modifications, and goals for the individual student, as well as the student's English language proficiency levels and state and local assessment data. The key target is to focus on the individual student's English language proficiency levels to help English learners be successful academically while increasing their English proficiency. This slide addresses question number 2. What are the tools, resources available to create an individual learning plan? It presents the resources available to all Pennsylvania educators. It includes the following: Wida ELD Standards Framework 2020 Guide, the Wida Can-Do descriptors, Pennsylvania Standards, AEDY website, any other tools and resources of your choice that are research-based and can be found on the internet or in classes or workshops you may be participating in are acceptable. This slide addresses question number 3. What are the steps to create a learning plan through the blending of Pennsylvania and Wida standards? The following documents are necessary for planning the individual learning plan. Let's gather the materials that will help create this plan. Keep in mind that the English Learner Individual Language Learning Plan will be a blend of Pennsylvania and Wida standards, which will include Pennsylvania overlays, Pennsylvania Common Core standards, and Wida 2020 standards, can-do descriptors, and proficiency levels. When you begin planning, have on hand the following resources. This seems like a lot, but you will see a familiarity of the two frameworks and a flow in the resources. The resources you need to have available are the 2022 or latest Individual Student Access Report or Wida Access Placement Test result of your student, the English Learner Learning Plan, Wida Can-Do descriptors, Pennsylvania standards, and Pennsylvania overlays. This slide presents Maria's Individual Student Report 2022. At first glance, looking at Maria's overall score of 1.4, you would think she might be a newcomer with very limited English language skills. However, After looking at the domain scores, Maria's writing proficiency level is a 3.0, which demonstrates she has English language skills. The other domain scores might suggest that Maria is not confident in speaking and listening, which could be for many reasons, such as the English language is spoken quickly. Is Maria shy and too timid to use the English language? And or is her vocabulary not developed enough? Can you think of other possible reasons for the low listening and speaking skills? Therefore, based on the results that we have, which domain should we target for instruction? This slide presents two documents: the individual learning plan page that asks for the student's background and the current 2022 access results. A review of Maria's learning plan may give us some clues on the needs to be addressed. Once you have filled out the plan and reflected over Maria's student background, school history, academic strengths, and areas of need, a plan can begin. Acknowledging that Maria's access lowest scores are listening 1.0, with reading at 1.1, and lastly a 1.2 in speaking, this gives us an area of need to target for Maria's language expectations. Possible scenario: prior review of her academic record states she has been in American public schools for 1 year and is considered a newcomer. Let's say the student background and school history does cite that Maria is shy. There is no indication of school records from her native country available, but she has attended school in her native country. Therefore, the area of focus will be on the listening and speaking skills. Why the listening and speaking skills? The language expectations would be to give Maria confidence in these areas and increase her listening and speaking proficiency in English, which would help her reading skills. You may have a different language expectation for Maria and target the reading skills, for example. This is great. You are the expert in the field. Therefore, the language expectations presented here are an example of goals for Maria's individual learning plan. This slide is an example of how the Pennsylvania Standards ELL overlays and Pennsylvania Core Standards, along with the 2020 Wida Framework, which includes the ELD standards, key language uses, language expectations, and proficiency level descriptors, are for lesson planning. This does look overwhelming. However, the next few slides will blend the Pennsylvania and Wida 2020 standards to guide educators in creating an individual language learning plan. A gentle reminder: lesson plans for your English learner students must be an individual plan tailored specifically for the student. On this slide, I will go over the Pennsylvania EL framework in the green frame. Under the framework, you have Pennsylvania overlays, Pennsylvania academic standards, Pennsylvania ELD standard statement, and Pennsylvania core standards. The Pennsylvania framework still has the former 2012 Wida framework language until the PDE does an update of Pennsylvania standards and overlays. The PDE supports the 2020 Wida framework. However, you will find that it takes time to become current with any new framework. The ELD standard statements in the blue frame remain the same, and there are no changes. Under the Pennsylvania framework in the yellow frames on the left, the language domains are listening, speaking, reading, and writing. The key language uses are recount, explain, argue, and discuss. The performance definitions K-12 include the 3 dimensions: discourse, sentence, and word phrase. The bottom blue frame reflects what has been retired, replaced, and what remains. On this slide, I will go over the current 2020 Wida framework. Under the framework, you have ELD standard statements which have not changed. The key language uses, language expectations, and proficiency level descriptors. This organizes the 2020 Wida ELD standards framework. Notice how the language has changed from language domains to the modes of communication in the yellow frames. The modes of communication continues to represent the listening, speaking, reading, and writing domains. However, they have been consolidated in the following mode. Interpretive encompasses listening, reading, and viewing, and expressive encompasses speaking, writing, and representing. The purpose is to increase accessibility options for students and emphasize multimodal forms of communication. The key language for the 2020 key language uses are now narrate, inform, explain, and argue instead of recount, explain, argue, and discuss. These are the slight differences from the two Wida frameworks. The performance definitions K-12 from 2012 are now the proficiency level descriptors presented in grade level clusters. However, the dimensions are the same: discourse, sentence, and word phrase. If you look at the bottom blue frame, you will note that the model performance indicators are retired. The language expectations of the Wida 2020 framework replace the MPIs, model performance indicators of Wida 2012 framework, and the can-do descriptors will remain available. This slide presents a visual of the key language uses and how they intersect with each other. As we shift from the 2012 Wida edition to the 2020 Wida edition, the four key language uses, narrate, argue, inform, and explain, these are central to the four big ideas: equity, integration, collaboration, and functional approach. The key language uses emphasize the ways that language is used for particular purposes, with particular audiences, and in particular social cultural contexts. This replaces the Wida 2012 edition of recount, explain, argue, and discuss. The can-do descriptors have not yet been updated to reflect the 2020 edition. However, can-do descriptors remain available as a valuable tool for instruction and planning. Whoa, let's take a breather. That was a lot of information. You may have many questions or comments you would like to ask or share. Remember, the AEDY team is always available to respond to you. So hang in there. A lesson plan is beginning to form. This slide focuses on increasing Maria's speaking and listening proficiency. Please note, the language expectation is on Standard 1, Social and Instructional Language, and highlights the language functions. This standard can be used with newcomers or with students at any proficiency level to build oracy. Wida ELD Standard 1 has no specific language features and can be used for the interpretive and expressive communication, which includes all four domains: listening, speaking, reading, and writing. This slide will look at the areas of need for Maria Patel. So let's put it all together. Listening is Maria's lowest score. However, the plan will focus on her speaking and writing skills, which is the expressive mode of communication. Maria's listening skills will increase based on overlapping the skills of need, speaking and writing. A lesson begins to form based on Maria's access results and over the PA standards and overlays. The first column in the individual learning plan document demonstrates the PA ELD standards, overlays, and core standards cited for the lesson. Take a few seconds to look at column 1. The next slide will present how the lesson begins to blend and support each other by using the Pennsylvania and Wida's 2020 frameworks. This slide will feature the can-do descriptors and proficiency level descriptors based on Maria's 2022 access results in the second column. In the third column, the Wida 2020 language expectations for Standard 1 and the ELD strand are posted, and tying it all together in the fourth column is how it would look. A reminder, the can-do descriptors have not been updated to the Wida Standards 2020 framework. However, they are still available and are an acceptable tool for increasing language proficiency. Can-do descriptors are presented by grade level clusters. In this case, the 6th through 8th grade can-do descriptor guide will be used for Maria's lesson. The Wida ELD standard is Standard 1, Social and Instructional Language. This standard can be used with newcomers or with students at any proficiency level to build oracy. You will notice that the ELD SI reference codes will be the same for grades 4 to 12. The key language uses narrate and inform. For this lesson, expressive speaking and writing language expectations are built around a set of language functions which highlight common patterns of language use. You will notice language functions of standards 2 to 5 are further delineated with language features. However, there are no specific language features for Standard 1, Social and Instructional Language, since Standard 1 is meant to be interwoven and paired with those of Standards 2 to 5. This information would be in the second column of the Individual Learning Plan document. This slide includes the two visuals that are representative of can-do descriptors and communication modes, narrate and inform. The can-do descriptors are activities you can utilize for planning and instruction. As you can see, I only included levels 1 to 3, Maria's range of language proficiency. The communication mode, narrate and inform, is the language expectation that can be used for speaking. Note that the 6th through 8th grade Wida ELD Standard 1, Social and Instructional Language, is presented in this slide. Just a reminder, this is a possible lesson for Maria. Other possibilities could be the 6th through 8th grade Wida ELD Standard 2, Language for Language Arts. The following resources were used in this presentation. In summary, this presentation demonstrated how the Pennsylvania and Wida 2020 frameworks support each other to increase English language proficiency for English learners and to help you create an English learner individual learning plan for your student. Thank you for participating in this presentation. Future presentations will include EL students with the same overall access scores, collaboration with ESL specialists and content teachers. Please contact the AEDY team for any questions in reference to this presentation.